Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. On today's episode, we're going over DeWalt's biggest, baddest half-inch hammer drill driver, this guy right here. It is marketed under their FlexVolt Advantage lineup. It is apparently better than the other drills that they've currently made, and it is their flagship drill they currently have right now. So we're gonna go over this tool, top to bottom, put on a track, see how it stacks up against the rest of the other drills in this class. Stick with us. All right, guys, so this right here is DeWalt's DCD999. It is their newest, baddest, powerfulest hammer drill they currently have on the market, and they're marketing under FlexVolt Advantage. If you don't know what that means, it's literally just marketing hype. We don't need to drill too much into it, but what they purposely point out is that with a FlexVolt battery, using a FlexVolt Advantage tool, it produces more power or performs better. In this case, the marketing hype generally says, with this drill, if you use a FlexVolt battery, it will produce up to 42% more power than using a standard 5 amp hour battery, which, you know, is no secret by any means, because if you've been following along in the channel and watching some of the other videos that we've had in the drill series, we've already established that, you know, drills using higher capacity batteries and higher output batteries perform better than drills with lower capacity amp hours or lower output batteries. We've seen this with the Makita, with the Milwaukee, and also with the DeWalt with the 996. So on this one, it actually is the DeWalt DCD999. So let's go ahead and see what improvements they made over the 996 and some of the other stuff they have going on. So in order to keep the video relatively shorter, we're not going to go over all the marketing hype. We're just going to go over some of the, you know, quirks and features, I guess, about this drill, and we'll go over that. Before we get into that, let's go over some of the quick specs. So DeWalt currently uses what they call unit watts out instead of inch pounds. They currently rate this drill at 1,219 unit watts out. You know, that's just all numbers that we're gonna have to see what it actually translates into in real world performance. But if you've watched any of the 996 videos, there's not too much really different about that. We're gonna drill into that in just a little bit, but let's bring you in closer and take a better look at it. All right, so let's just start off with the left side of the drill. When you're holding it, it's just the left side, okay? There's really nothing interesting really going on here outside of 996. If you've seen the 996 video, it's pretty much almost exactly the same thing. It feels the same, okay? It's got pretty much marketing hype emblem. It says brushless here, brushless here, it's brushless in a couple places, just in case you didn't know your tool was brushless. But from the 996 from the side, it's gonna look almost the same, just a little bit different coloring. This one is fairly new, so it really hasn't been used too much at all, okay? Obviously hammer drill sign there, which also serves as a nod skid mark type thing, so that if you put it down somewhere, it doesn't slide off too much or scratch up the surface that it's on, but it does serve some kind of purpose right there, okay? Moving on to the back side of the drill, this right here, standard DeWalt 996 looking drill, nothing too much frills or stuff going on there. It's got like a place for a lanyard if you want to connect the hook or something like that. But it also has right here FlexVolt Advantage, and I believe on this drill that is the only place they really market FlexVolt Advantage on here. Okay, so like I said, moving around to the right side. So on the right side of the drill, same thing as the left side, except right here it'll say DCD999, right? Pretty much the same thing. The grip is exactly standard. If you're used to using DeWalt tools or DeWalt drills or whatnot, it's literally nothing too much different. All this black stuff is rubber overmolded right here until you get to, you know, some of this collar part up here, but we'll talk about that in a second, okay? Moving along to the front, just like the 996 and some of the other drills after that, this one does have a, you know, the same feature where if you move the slider all the way to the right, the third setting, it will have a LED light that will stay on for 20 minutes, and it is relatively bright. And like I said in other videos, it is not really a gimmick. If you're literally just taking this one tool into somewhere, it actually helps to bring this tool, because you can just sit it down and point like a small work light if you're working in like a cabinet or something like that, right? You don't have to carry another light. So a lot of people think it's a gimmick, but I've actually found it useful, but that's just my opinion. It does have a secondary setting. If you move it to the middle, right, it will just be a little bit less bright and it won't stay on as long, okay? If you move it to the left, it's just gonna stay on a little bit shorter and it's a little bit darker, right? So that's what's really going on there. On the top part right here, it's got 3 settings, as most, you know, higher end heavy duty DeWalt drills will say 1, 2, and 3, right? So as with, you know, the 996 or the whatever drill, you know, the what's the other one, the power detector, whatnot. All of these have 3 settings, and almost all the ones with 3 settings almost always have more difficulty getting it into speed 2 because it's not either fully here or fully here. You're trying to get it into the middle. And like most of the other drills, every once in a while, if you don't have the drill like stopped in exactly or there's like a certain spot you stop it in where you can't move it. If that ever happens, just move it. You know, just press the trigger a couple times and you will be able to move the gear switch lever, right? So on here, this is a mechanically controlled clutch, or an actuated clutch, whatever you want to call it, or digital clutch, some people call it that. And this ring here is yellow. Unlike the DCD 996, which the ring is pretty much gray, and it's got roughly 11 settings and a drill mode and a hammer drill mode, okay? The other thing to talk about on here, on this front, is this chuck. It seems to be almost the same thing as the 996, and it's a nitro carburized, as I say, and it generally, you don't really have any issues gripping it or whatnot. The knurling is actually really good, and that's all there really is to say about that. So before we go too much into that, let's bring up the handle, right? So this right here is the handle of the DeWalt DCD 999. And you can see this part is actually metal. There is a metal rod going through it, and they've actually made improvements on it by making it longer, right? 999 handle, here is the 996 handle. The 996 handle is pretty much almost all plastic except for like this metal bolt type thing going through it. But this one is quite a bit longer, as you can see, which if you've seen the 996 video, I've pretty much always you know, said that this handle could use improvement and could afford to be a little bit longer, right? So with this one, it does work, but if you only had the 996 handle, it does also work. They are interchangeable, but the way that it really works is you slide it on right here, right towards the front part of the drill, and then you know, just crank it down, and it generally works relatively good. Although this part is metal, it is not significantly heavy by any means, but it does work pretty well without any indentions for any place for it to grab. As long as you crank it down, it will hold pretty well. This hole right here will also serve as a stop rod if you are using this for hammer drilling action. And if you are using this drill to do any serious work or whatnot, I'll definitely encourage you using this handle, mainly because it is for safety reasons, and this drill has a lot of power. So let's go talk about some of the stuff that actually engages that power, right? So here is the variable speed trigger. We'll go over it real quick. It generally works really well, and it varies. Like the top end of it will vary, and the ramp up time will vary. We'll demo that here real quick, right? So right now, we'll go to clutch setting 1, gear mode 1, right? We'll go full throttle all the way. See, there's a slight ramp up time there, right? Clutch setting 11, gear mode 1, right? So the top end of that band, or the band, will change depending on the clutch setting you have it on. Let's go to 3, right? And clutch setting 11. That's fast, right? So now let's go down to clutch setting 1 on gear mode 3. A little bit faster, right? So now let's go ahead and talk about some of the variable speed trigger on here. So if we move this variable speed trigger slowly, watch. It works well, right? It's very smooth. It seems pretty linear. No real issues with that. Haven't really had any issues with the DeWalt triggers by any means, right? So let's go ahead and tell you a little bit about the downfalls of most digital clutches, at least we've seen so far on the drills that we reviewed. So like almost all the other drills except for the Makita, the XGT one that has the electronic clutch, this one will still also have a higher threshold before the clutch engages or turns off the drill, right? So we'll go to 1 and we'll clutch mode 1, and we'll hold this and see what's going on here real quick. Right? That was awkward. Let's try that again. Right? It if there's such a high threshold, in order for it to engage, it becomes really awkward. If you watch the DeWalt or the Makita XGT video, they've actually done a really good job in tuning that. And plus, that one just has a ridiculous number of clutch settings, which is almost a pain in itself. We'll show you that here real quick. All right, so right here we have standard framing 2x6 lumber. We're gonna be on gear mode 1, clutch setting 1, and we're gonna see how well it stops this drywall screw from going all the way in, right? So here we go. If I didn't stop, it would have drilled pretty much all the way through, right? Check this out. Clutch mode 1, gearbox 1. Let's try that again. Right? Bearing it all the way. So if you are doing a lot of delicate work or whatnot and you actually need a sensitive clutch, I will definitely look at the Makita XGT GPH01, mainly because that one, they have solved the issue of the thresholds of clutch settings on that drill. So definitely check that one out. So now let's go and talk about the differences between the 996 and this 999, right? So this one right here is on my right, or if you're looking at your left, right here is 999 and here's 996. This is the 4 amp hour battery. I just didn't have another 5 amp hour on me. But if you look at it up close, it looks very similar, but also a little bit, just a smidge different, just minor differences, right? This ring right here, the clutch ring is yellow on the 999. There's not as much stickers or XR marketing, stuff like that they have on here. On the 996, it's XR and stuff like that. On the top part, it still has 3 gear settings. And like I said, the handles are pretty much adjustable, right? Or interchangeable in a way. Same LED lights going on here. If you didn't really know about, flex volt advantage, whatnot, it's easy to mistake one for the other, but the 999 actually produces more power overall, even without the flex volt battery, right? So since that's what we really get with the drill, let's go ahead and see if we can put it on the track, guess the numbers, and see how it stacks up against all the other ones on the market now. All right, so those numbers went by really fast, and as you could tell, we really actually needed this. Longer side handle definitely helps in these cases when you are using drills with a lot of power, right? So let's go ahead and take a recap. This DeWalt DCD999 with the 5 amp hour battery. First run on the 5/16 inch by 6 inch lag test. First run 1.54 seconds, peak torque 102. Second run 1.43 seconds, peak torque 101. Third run 1.50 seconds, peak torque 86 inch-pounds. It was able to do that task on speed 3, and the average of the 3 runs comes in at 1.49 seconds with the peak torque average of 96.33 seconds in order to complete the task. Moving on to the half inch by 8 inch lag test. First run 8.11 seconds, peak torque 387. Second run 7.57 seconds, peak torque 412. Third run, 7.24 seconds, peak torque 361. It did, however, have to drop down to speed 1 in order to complete that test. And if you average out the 3 runs, the average comes out to 7.64 seconds with the peak torque average of 386.67. So usually we're going to get through the other numbers, but let's go ahead and just stop for just a second here to point some of this out here. Some of the differences out. So if you look at later on, you'll go ahead and look at some of the other specs on the other drills where it stacks up. But this drill currently, I believe, is the second drill that was able to complete the 5/16 inch by 6 inch lag test in under 2 seconds average. And the half inch auger test came in right around 7.6 seconds. Yes, it is not sub 6 seconds, but we can drill more into that later. Moving on to the 3/4 inch auger test. First run 5.46, second run 5.1. It was able to complete that challenge on speed 3. If you average out the 2 runs, comes out to 5.28 seconds, all right? Running on to the 1/4 inch masonry test. First run 4.43, second run 3.44, third run 3.56. You average out the 3 runs, that comes out to 3.81. The peak torque measured across all the tests that we did with this 5 amp hour battery comes in at 412 inch-pounds. We're going to talk about that in a little bit later, okay? The weight for this drill and this battery, and not the handle, comes in at 4 pounds 15.9 ounces. That's just say 5 pounds. That's it, right? So let's go take a look at the total performance number for this drill, right? Total performance number, as I tell you on every drill series video, we add up the average of the 5/16 inch lag, half inch lag, and the 3/4 inch auger. We do not include the masonry results on here, mainly because not all the drills are going to be hammer drills, and anybody doing any real hammer drill test or serious masonry work is going to be using an SDS. I hope. If you're not, then I'm sorry, but you really need to go get one. So the total performance number for this drill in the 5 amp hour battery comes out to 14.41 seconds, and that puts this drill currently in, I believe, 6th place, right around, you know, pretty much all the other drills with 5 amp hour batteries tested, right? So 14.41 for the 999 and the 5, which comes out to, you know, beaten out right behind the Milwaukee 2804-20 with a 8 amp hour high output, and the Makita XPH07 with the 18 volt 5 amp hour battery comes in with 15.58 seconds, right? So that's pretty much where it is, and that's what you would expect, you know, same type of battery, 5 amp hour battery there. Although with the Milwaukee 5 amp hour battery, it's a little bit lower because that one had a performance score of 16.56, right? So one of the things that we did with this drill, as we would expect, is test it with this FlexVolt 9 amp hour battery, which means in 20 volt mode, if you're using it on 20 volt tool, it actually is a 9 amp hour battery. And if you use it on a FlexVolt tool, it becomes a 3 amp hour battery. So this is pretty much considered a 9 amp hour battery on this tool. So let's go look at the results on the 5/16 inch lag test. First run 1.42 seconds, peak torque 112. Second run 1.28 seconds, peak torque 108. Third run 1.32 seconds, peak torque 115. It was able to complete that challenge on speed 3, and if you take an average of the 3 runs, comes in at 1.34 and peak torque average of 111.67. So again, it was able to complete that challenge in sub 2 seconds, and there's only been, I believe, one other drill on the market that we've tested so far that has been able to do that. Moving on to the half-inch lag test. First run, 6.13 seconds, peak torque 420. Second run, 5.57 seconds, peak torque 506. On the third run, 5.43 seconds, peak torque 404. It did have to do that on speed 1, and if you average out the 3 runs, comes in at 5.71 seconds with the peak torque average of 443. That is almost in line with the Makita GPH1 if you've watched that video. So go check that one out. On the 3/4 inch auger test, first run 4.15, second run 4.24. It was able to do that on speed 3, and the average of those 2 runs comes in at 4.20 seconds. Moving on to the masonry test. All right, masonry test. First run 3.51, second run 3.06, third run 3.32. Average of 3 runs comes in at 3.30 seconds. The peak torque across all the tests that we ran with this drill comes in, that we've measured, comes in at 506 inch-pounds. And we're going to stop there real quick to just point this out. As I mentioned in pretty much all the videos, that is not necessarily the peak torque this tool generates. That is the peak torque that was measured in order to complete the task. We can probably have another video on the amount of peak torque it can generate, but as I mentioned again, you know, the inline peak torque measuring device, I'm not sure how accurate it is at that high speeds, so it may or may not be too accurate, but we're using the same one across all of them, so if it's not accurate, it's going to be relatively not accurate across all of them, right? You would think. Anyways, so just take that with a grain of salt. So this tool with the 9 amp hour flex volt battery, so to say, paired together, weighs in at 6 pounds, 7.9 ounces. That is pretty heavy, not light by any means for this, right? So let's go ahead and the moment of truth and what everybody really wants to know, right? How does this drill perform, the flagship drill with the 9 amp hour flex volt battery? So the total performance score of this drill comes in at 1.25 seconds. Where does that put this drill? That puts this drill and this battery combination currently in second place, right behind the Makita GPH1 using the 4 amp hour battery, right? So that is a 40 volt tool using a 4 amp hour battery, but it does, however, take second place from the GPH1 using a 2.5 amp hour battery. So it's right there in line with that. So it almost takes the leaderboard or takes the lead away, but it doesn't do it just yet, okay? So what can we really say about this tool? We'll get into that in a second, but let's go over some of the interesting other quirks and stuff like that, right? So this drill, like the 996, has a RPM peak of around 2,000, right? And that's, you know, all the other hammer drills or, you know, other high class drills in this class at least will go to around 2,000. But if you move it this mode, clutch setting, over to hammer drill mode, it actually peaks up an extra 250 RPM, not BPM, but RPM. So it actually spins faster on hammer drill mode, going up to 2,250 RPM. And exactly like the 996, the BPM of this drill is currently at 38,250. That's beats per minute. You could, you know, say that's impacts on how many impacts it does when it's in hammer drill mode, right? So the reason I'm pointing that out is 38,250 is vastly different than most of the other hammer drills on the market, which is 32,000, right? So it's got an increase of around 6,250. And what does that translate into? If we look at just the masonry section of the leaderboard, this drill, I believe, currently is the fastest hammer drill currently on the market for this type of setup, right? We'll throw up another video. We'll probably do another test on how it compares with SDS drills. But if you look at it, the average of the hammer drill test comes in right around 3.30 seconds, and no other drill even comes close to that. Well, I mean, besides the DeWalt drills, I guess, in this class. The fastest Makita hammer drilling thing we've tested so far was 3.39, right? Fastest Milwaukee hammer drilling one we've tested obviously was a 2804, but that one average came out to 4.45, And, you know, there's other drills and stuff like that to look at. But the RPM is fast and the BPM is fast. You could also argue the Makita RPM is faster and the BPM is faster, but we don't really know how much energy per an impact it does or how much joules that's really measured in. But anyways, I did want to point that out because that is a very interesting fact in that, right? So obviously there's variance and stuff with the test, but it seems like the averages seem to kind of tell the real story here, right? So what can we really say about this tool? If you look at it compared to the DCD 996, right, which also had major improvements using a FlexVolt battery, right? So the 996 with a 5 amp hour battery had a total performance score of 16.67, but if you use that drill with a FlexVolt battery, the same FlexVolt battery, it actually got a better score of 13.08, right? So that's a difference of roughly around, you know, let's just say 3.6 seconds-ish, right? So the 999 still has the same benefit to that, right? So the 999 with a 5 amp hour battery comes in at, you know, 14.41 versus the 9 amp hour battery, which was 11.25. So that's a difference of, you know, 3-ish seconds, somewhere in that neighborhood. So the performance difference is not the same, but there is a good amount of difference depending on which battery you use. But the interesting thing DeWalt did was they actually made the drill better with just the 5 amp hour battery, right? So it's got this neat feature where, you know, if the internal resistance of the battery is sustained under load, it will continue to draw more power from the battery. That's pretty much what FlexVolt Advantage here is really doing. And drills under heavy load are high drain devices, so it does make sense for those results that say that. So some drills won't do that, mainly because their motors and electronics are controlling that from happening, you know, to protect the drills and stuff like that. But generally, across all the board on all the drills, the more torque and heavy duty application you're using it for, the more power it's going to draw. So that's just a general statement across that, right? So would I go out and buy this drill? Now's probably a good time to say I did go out and buy this drill. Nobody sent this to us. This is not a sponsored video by any means. We went out and bought it with our own monies. But if you're in a DeWalt lineup and you're looking for a really big, bad, heavy duty hammer drill, this one is the one you're looking for. Would I go out and buy the 996? Probably not if this drill is currently on the market. This drill is the one to go for, mainly because if you are buying DeWalt tools, I'm going to assume you're probably going to buy FlexVolt lineup batteries if you haven't bought them already, right? You know, for circular saws or other stuff like that. So this one does make sense to go to. I'm not even sure if the 996 is even continued anymore by any means. I'm sure it probably still is, but I would not buy that one and definitely buy this one. With that being said, I believe the FlexVolt Advantage line is marketed currently only at the Home Depot, and the equivalent to that, but with maybe a little bit software aggressiveness tuning to be a little lesser aggressive, right, is called what they call the Power Detect. Same type of function, same type of thing, except the Power Detect currently is only at lows. So they're generally pretty much the same thing, but if you look at the consensus from everybody, it generally seems that the FlexVolt Advantage is just a little bit more powerful than the Power Detect, right? So that's all we can really say about it. Like I said, all the information we just throw on the screen. So I hope this video helped you guys out. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. Otherwise, have a great day, and then we'll see you guys next time.